First National Bank of Lake Jackson presents Bank on It with your host, Dave Mayberry.
Welcome all, both here in our studios and those streaming online, to another edition of Bank on It. Today we welcome the Brazoria County Floodplain Director and my dear friend and yours, Joe Ripple. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to talk a little bit about not only what's happened in the past with my life growing up in Clute, but what's happening now with Brazoria County floodplains.
Well, we appreciate you taking out some time with us, whether you're never-ending schedule to visit with us, but we're good friends, and I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this time, and it's here now, and I can't wait to get started. I'm going to start off with, I moved to Clute. I was born in Freeport, moved to Clute in the 7th grade, but you're a bona fide lifer. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Clute.
I am actually
back in the 30s.
From the city of Clute, the country of Clutonia. You know, growing up, it was an awesome opportunity. And you know, the reality, all of the cities within Brazoria County, especially in the southern part of Brazoria County, each city really has its own climate and culture, and it really makes it special. But in Clute, all of my relatives were there on both sides of the family. My dad's family and my mother's family were both from Clute. And so we were raised really loving our city because it was the epicenter for family gatherings and family interaction.
I love that. And big families. You grew up with a huge loving and supporting family, but back in those days, and you'll probably agree with me, it really took a village to raise us.
You're right.
Tell us about some of your early heroes and mentors that you can think of.
You know, family was the key to my success. I had almost 30 first cousins. And what led to that success, and it even carried over when I became school superintendent, because we had a philosophy. We could beat up each other.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk trash to each other, but we were family. And in the end, we understood that. But if someone else did that, they better get ready for all 30 first cousins, and they better get ready for a butt whipping. So throughout my career, I've known that I have the support of a strong family. So growing up, it was just, I knew they would always be there. And so I gained that confidence throughout my career that I really feel like led to my success in any vocation I've been in. But I can tell you this, the other part that really impacted my life in the field of education. The first step, you know, my dad worked for Dow for years and years and years. And the reality back then, once you graduated from high school, you went to work for Dow.
Right. It was a given.
Yeah. And my dad was the first generation high school graduate. And he really didn't see the need to go to college. That was a reality. I mean, why would you go when you can get married, have a big family, and make a good living? And I'm sure he made more than my high school principal, Mr. Markham, working for Dow. And he really was hoping I would follow in those footsteps. But Randy Day, the athletic trainer at Brazos Wood, said, "Joe Keith, there's something I want you to try. I really think you'll be a great athletic trainer, great educator. If I can help you get a scholarship," because I was the oldest of 4 boys, there was no extra money. "Would you consider going?" And Trainer Day not only helped me with the application, he got me the scholarship to Sam Houston, which allowed me to go. But there was another group in our community that, thank goodness it wasn't based on academic success. But back then there was a club called the JCs, and they were a group of young men.
Oh, yeah.
And what they would do all kinds of activities to raise money for scholarships. And I received one of their scholarships, and they said something to me, and I was able to receive one of those. And it was strictly based on what they felt like your future would be, not on current academic success. They said, "We want to give you this scholarship, but we ask that you do one thing." And that one thing is never forget where you came from. And Dave, to this day, I still get teary-eyed because that's a reality. And I want to tell you something I never did. I never did forget.
It's
And-
obvious in all the things that you're involved with that's part of your persona.
And so we went off, and I became high school principal in Cleburne, Texas. And we worked hard, and we were recognized by U.S. News and World Report as one of the top 100 schools in the country. And they came down and they wanted to know what research I had utilized to create this atmosphere for the campus, or what books had I utilized, what theories had I utilized. And I'll never forget the education commissioner, the look on his face when I said it was the pinky philosophy. And he said, "What? I don't believe I've ever heard of that." And I said, "Because you're not from Clute." But when I was raised in Clute, we went to Temple Baptist Church, and you probably knew him. He was a little guy named Pinky. He was hit by a car on Shank Street.
Right.
And he had some disabilities after that. And he went to our church, Temple Baptist Church. And he was there every Sunday, no matter what. And when the preacher would stand at the door,
He'd wear a tuxedo.
he wore a tuxedo every Sunday. That's right. And so he would shake people's hands. He'd stand right next to the preacher. He
I love
sang
that.
in the choir. He never even turned, his songbook was always upside down. He couldn't read, but he was there, and he felt like he was a part of it. And we got our haircut just down the street at Kubala's. Mr. Kubala, you remember
Of
Frank
course.
Kubala?
Oh,
Used
yeah.
to be the old post office. And we were in there, and I would go with my dad to get his hair cut, and they had a shoe shine boy in there. And I would watch them, and Pinky would sit in there too. And I was chewing gum, and this guy from out of town came in to get his shoes shined. And I knew he was from out of town, Dave, because he had tassels on his shoes.
He is an out of town.
He was because all of our dads, the only shoes they had were from the Dow store, and
Of
they were
course.
steel-toed Brogans.
They all look the same.
They all looked the same. So, everybody knew he was from out of town. Well, he got in there, and he thought he was being cute, and he started making fun of Pinky. And Pinky was just sitting there.
Mistake.
And all those men just kind of looked at the guy, and he kept going like he felt entitled. And so he kept messing with Pinky, and my dad told Mr. Kubala, he said, "Stop cutting my hair." And he pulled down his little scarf deal that Mr. Kubala had wrapped around his neck, and he said, "Mister, don't mess with Pinky." Well, the guy just looked at my dad like, "Who the hell are you?"
Right.
And he kept messing with Pinky, and he said, "Mister, I'm going to tell you one more time, don't mess with Pinky." Well, as a little kid, my heart was racing because I knew if we got in a fight, Mama'd give us a spanking, and I wasn't sure what she'd do to Dad. But I just knew we were headed towards a fight.
Something was about to happen.
Well, that old man, my dad never blinked, and I didn't either. And I was chewing that double bubble gum
Right.
that the barber gave me, and I was looking at him, and he never blinked, and that guy realized he better back down quick. And to this day, I still hear that doorbell ring that he had hooked to the door as he ran out the door.
I love that.
On our way home, I asked my dad, I said, "Dad, you almost got in a fight. Pinky didn't know he didn't know he was being made fun of. He didn't care." And my dad said, "Joe Keith, I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to always remember it. Pinky didn't know, but I knew. And let me tell you this, you don't make fun of one of ours, and Pinky's one of ours." And I took that to the ideal that everyone in education is important. It's not just your gifted students that have had experiences with their families from the age of 3 that they're going to special schools and have international travel. It's also those kids that struggle. It's also those children that have disabilities that need to grow and need to experience an education. And you take them from a certain point and allow them to expand their knowledge base and feel that gift of success. And when we were recognized, that's what we were recognized for, is making a difference academically in all students, black, white, rich, poor, gifted, and those with disabilities. The Pinky philosophy.
I'll never forget it.
You're one of ours.
That's special.
So that's always, everything that's happened to me is a result of the impact that this community had on me. And like the JC said, never forget. And I never did.
So did you have an inkling that you wanted to be in education when you were at Brazos Wood, or?
Yeah, it really, Trainer Day was instrumental in pushing me that direction.
Is he the one that put the thought in your
all
head,
the
like,
teachers,
you know what?
Even Miss Ross, when I was applying for a Sam Houston leadership scholarship. I was active in student council and that type of thing. So I applied for a leadership scholarship at Sam Houston, and it required teacher recommendations.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So I asked Miss Ross. She was she was a science teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I was right on the border of failure. I think I had a 69, and I said, well, if I ask her to write this recommendation, she's going to be so flattered. That'll be worth the point.
1 point's all I need.
So I went to her and I said, Miss Ross, I think the world of you. Would you consider writing a recommendation for me for this leadership scholarship? It's really instrumental for me to go to school, because you're with the president's team and you're really you're moved into a different realm at the university. She said I would highly consider it. She always called me Mr. Ripple. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let me know. And so she did. She sent one to me, and I met with the president, Elliot Bowers, at Sam Houston. And what was odd, my dad went with me, and he's a gardener. And if you've ever been to Huntsville, you see the beautiful shrubbery and gardens. And I'm looking out Dr. Bowers' window, and there's my dad weeding the flower bed. And so I kind of lost track, but Dr. Bowers was going over. He said, you've been selected. And I said, oh, that's so neat. And he said, it was really based on a number of your recommendations from your teachers. And I said, could you pull one recommendation and let me hear what she said? I said, could you pull the recommendation from Miss Ross? And he did. And he pulled it. And I'll never forget, she wrote it with a magic marker. Not a pen, a magic marker, a Sharpie. And it said, Mr. Ripple has unlimited potential.
And you've been searching for that?
Bowers, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Put a blue star on that one.
Potential will come. And by the way, Dave, I made a 71 in that science class, and it was like I'd made an A. I was the happiest person in the world.
Guys came back and showed that parents right away. So after you left Huntsville in shambles, and it'll never be the same, was your first job in Claiborne?
No, it was actually in El Campo.
Oh, that's right. You were a rice bird.
I was a fighting rice bird, and their fight song was the Ulata Polka. And it was so much fun. And I was their first trainer, and they hired me.
That's a fun town,
because
I think.
They were a rival of Brazos Woods. And Buzzy Keith was the head football coach, and he was the president of the Coaches Association. And he said, I want you on my staff. And I taught senior government, loved every minute of it. And the only negative that I had there was I was so impressed with myself. My parents came to see me because, Dad didn't think I would ever graduate from college. And I did. I went on the fast track. I crammed a 4-year degree into 5. But
named a dorm after you.
Dad and Mom came up to see me. They wanted to verify that I was.
Is this really true? Or
this is true. So I'm back then. Athletic trainers, coaches had their coaching attire, but an athletic trainer wore all white, white shoes, white pants, white belt, the whole thing. So they start playing the Ulata Polka, and I told Coach Keith, I said, Coach Keith, do you mind if I run out with the boys and go through the run-through sign? He said, well, Trainer Ripple, I tell you, we don't normally do that. Coaches will just run along the sideline, and then the athletes will meet us there, and we'll have a big hoo-ha-ha. I said, well, I really want to. My parents are in the stands, and this is going to be so exciting. He said, well, all right. Well, they played the Ulata Polka. In the first round, Dave, back then, they didn't have those real neat run-through deals with the smoke and all that. The girls painted them, and they put them together with masking tape. Well, apparently they had run out of masking tape, and they used duct tape.
Oh.
Well, I'm right behind the lineman. And so as soon as they hit it, they bounced back and fell on the ground. And I fell on the ground, and people just fell all over the top of me. Well, they were on the second verse of Ulata Polka by the time we busted through that little run-through sign.
And that left a huge impression on your parents.
Well, I'm looking down, and my white clothes have green stains and mud and dirt. And I'm about to cry because I look up in the stands and I see my mom and Dad's just shaking his head like, oh, Lord, this took 5 years and this is what we get. And I looked over the sideline. There's Coach Keith, his first trainer. He had just hired me. He's president of the Coaches Association. So I want to go in. I thought, I can't go to the sideline. I got to go change clothes. And I thought, now I'm going to go to the sideline. So I jogged on over, and Coach Keith called me over.
Mm.
And he said, if you'd gone in, I would have fired you after the game.
Wow.
And he said, but I saw you look back, and I saw you look at the sidelines, and you came onto the sidelines. You made the right choice. When things get tough, you don't run. You go on with your goal and find a way to create success. And from that point on, we remained friends throughout my entire career.
He was a pretty well-known coach.
Very well.
In Texas.
From Louise, Texas.
That's right, Louise, Texas. And I'm sure that white uniform still fits you today.
I don't think so.
No. Thoughts about, did you go from El Campo to Brazos Wood?
No, I went to...
Then you went to Cleburne?
Cleburne. Yeah, Cleburne. And I went as an elementary principal, worked my way up the system to high school principal, and then assistant superintendent.
Tell me about the day you get the phone call and your old alma mater's called
you back
for some reason.
It was the most exciting phone call I ever received. Well, we knew the position was open, and my Aunt Rose, who is clairvoyant. Now, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's true, but she
made a believe it out of you.
She had the skill to think she was clairvoyant. And so we were down for a family gathering, and she said, Joe Keith, you do know the superintendency is open for Brazosport ISD. And I said, oh, yes, ma'am. And she said, well, have you applied? And I said, oh, no, I'm not qualified for a position like that. I've just been an assistant superintendent for a few years. And she says, oh, no, you need to apply. She said, I've seen it. You need to apply.
Mm.
Well, I didn't apply. I thought, oh, that's silly. And I don't want to be embarrassed. Well, there was a headhunter that was doing the search. And out of the blue, I get a call. And I thought it was one of my cousins messing with me. And they told me they were the headhunter and that they would like for me to come in for an interview for the superintendent of schools for Brazosport ISD. And I told the guy, I said, you got to be nuts. Who the hell is this? And because I thought it was my cousins had put somebody up just to mess with me.
Right.
And he said, no, sir, I'm the agent that's working for the school district to find candidates that really would be good potential candidates for this position. So I came down and
tell me who you interviewed with.
The board at the time was all of the people that really I knew well: Joel Welch, Jay Luce, Bobby Sharp, lots of great guys, Mario Martinez. And so they came down, and I had to keep it a secret. And so
that's hard for you.
It is hard for me. We came down in secret. And the biggest worry I had, my wife, because they always want to talk to your wife. And I said, Aaron, now it's
Find
a
every great name.
5-hour drive from Cleburne. You got plenty of time to think of something nice that you want to say about me. Well, she was having her wedding ring repaired. And I said, oh, Aaron, you really need a ring on. I mean, they'll look at this kind of stuff. Well, she gets in there, Dave, and I look down and she plops that wedding hand so they can see she's truly married. And it's a rock like I had never seen before. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what in the hell have you gone and done? Because I said go buy a ring. It looked like about a 3 carat. And the reality, her actual wedding
don't have
ring,
the job yet, honey.
yeah, was a 0.25 carat from Hereford Jewelry in Rosenberg, where all of us went to get our wedding rings.
Custom made.
Custom made from their own diamond factory in Africa.
They grew their own diamonds.
So when I saw that, I was so tongue-tied I started sweating because I thought she has charged this ring. So we get through the interview. She actually says a few nice things, and we get through, and I got outside.
Hope they recorded that.
I went, Aaron, where in the hell did you get that ring? She said, Wieners, don't worry about it. It was on clearance for $9.99.
Bless her heart.
But ultimately, Dave, I got the job.
Who called you to tell you that?
The headhunter, well, I was on my way back. There were several people that in their finalist group. And so the headhunter called me back as we were going back to Cleburne and said, they want you to come back tomorrow for a second interview. So I knew it was down to, I had a chance. So I get in the interview and, keep in mind, I'm kind of a big guy. I buy my suits from J.C. Penney's clearance big man section.
Portly.
So my entire suit with tie, shirt, a pair of new socks was probably $100. So I get there and there's this guy sitting in the lobby with me. And I thought,
that's
there's my competition. He's got on this suit I know must be $1,000 suit. And it's a tie. I mean, he's impeccably dressed. Shoes that he must have shined every day. So I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to handle this? Do I need to whip him right here? Or do you need to call some family? We'll take care of this. We'll just disappear. Well, we get in there and they call us both in. And I thought, oh, no, I've never been on an interview like this. And they went, Joe, we want to offer you the job, and we'd like you to meet this gentleman. He's our attorney that'll be handling your contract. So I was so relieved. I hugged his neck, and he went, well, that's the first. I said, come on in here, give me a hug. I thought you were my competition.
And you didn't even take the little tag off the sleeve of the jacket. Looked like Minnie Pearl walking in there. Oh, I wish I'd have been a fly on the wall for that.
To this day, because that happens, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, I'm always looking at a guy's rear end, and it's not because I have something special about a rear end. I was notorious for leaving that one strip that told everybody what waist those jeans were on that little
clear one.
Because somebody walked next to me, they said, "You're a 42?" And I went, "How'd you know that?" "Well, it's that strip you left on that pair of Levi jeans."
Minnie Ripple. That's a good stopping point for us. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back and continue our talk with Floodplain Director Joe Ripple after these words from our friends. The purpose of the Brazoria County Floodplain Administration Office is to help citizens of the county when purchasing property for development. Building permits are required for any new or relocated structure more than 200 square feet, manufactured home, or addition of more than 50% of a present existing structure. We can help with hazard mitigation, building permits, thoroughfares, coastal management programs, and more, including the downloadable forms that you just might need. For questions, call 979-849-5711. The number again is 979-849-5711, Brazoria County Floodplain, keeping you in compliance and informed for a long, long time. Our podcast today is sponsored by First National Bank of Lake Jackson, featuring financial services with the integrity that you deserve. Let's talk. Call or come by and let's discuss your goals and plans for the future. First National Bank of Lake Jackson, putting you first for over 63 years. Member FDIC. We're back with Joe Ripple. Joe, tell us about what you do as a director of the Brazoria County Floodplain and what your office can do for the citizens of Brazoria County.
Well, after I retired, I really thought I would enjoy retirement, and it just wasn't me. And Dave, I think you've experienced that. You feel like it's a mission to be a part of your community, not just in your vocation, but just making a difference through organizations, which I know you are involved in so many. But I had an opportunity to go to work for, in fact, my wife encouraged me to go back to work. We were together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week after I retired. And having been in a position where I was really never at home, I don't think she realized what I was like until I retired.
She really wanted a real ring.
She told me
go back to work.
She encouraged me to find a job. And in fact, we were at Luby's at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, like old people, getting a Luann platter.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're looking at each other because we have nothing to say to one another because we're together 24 hours a day.
You've said everything.
We have. So they ring the bell to help this old man with his tray. She said, "I'm going to tell you now." She kind of got that voice, that inner guttural voice that you may be possessed. She said, "I'm going to tell you now, when they ring your bell, you're going to a home." So I sensed there was a little bit of the love had left the relationship. So she had encouraged me to find something. And
you didn't need your clairvoyant aunt to figure that one out. Okay.
So Dude had this position open. And Dude was one of our county commissioners, and we were good friends. And he said, "Joe, why don't you come try floodplain director?" And, Dave, even though I'd lived here my entire life, I had no idea that there were levels that you had to meet certain standards and floodplains and flood zones. And so I was sent to a training, and it was pretty intense. And they sent me to San Antonio. And to tell you the truth, I hadn't taken a test in like 30 years. I'd given a lot as a teacher, but I'm thinking, and they send me in the middle of Fiesta in San Antonio.
Perfect.
So Erin goes with me to try to keep me on task because, she doesn't want me to go back to work. So I could hear them outside. They were having a fiesta.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe Ripple wanted to join the fiesta. So I go, okay, study fiesta, fiesta one. So I go out with the next morning. She had to go back. She was, she's a teacher too. And I called her and I said, "Why did I do that? Why'd you let me do that? I'm scared to death. I'm not going to be successful." She said, "Big boy, you made that choice. So just live with it." But it all worked out. And I was able to take the role. And I think what we added to it was that I care about you. The pinky philosophy. I don't care if you live in $1 million house or if you live in a shanty on the river that's been flooded 40 times. My goal is to take care of you because you're one of ours. So we had an opportunity after Harvey to apply for a grant.
That was one of my questions. I want you to talk about this. This is very important.
Yeah, this is probably, it's been a game changer, and it hasn't been without issues, but it's certainly been a game changer. Texas Department of Emergency Management was offering a grant to elevate structures, or if the structure could not be elevated because of the damage to the structure, they would actually build the customer a new house up to $250,000. And the only caveat was you have to keep a flood insurance in perpetuity. So that seemed like a small price to pay. And so we applied for the grant, hired a consulting firm. And this goes back to where, and you are so wonderful at this, is developing relationships and developing those strong relationships with where it develops into a friendship, not just a relationship. So we get the opportunity, and there's communities across the state that have applied. And so we apply for $60 million. We want $30 million for elevation and $30 million for reconstruction. And the head of the Texas Department of Emergency Management, Chief Kidd, said, no, we can't do that. You get one or the other. Well, it just so happened that Chief Kidd and Judge Sebesta
Matt
had a great relationship. They tailgate together at A&M. And so when it comes down to it, if all these communities are equal in their application, what sells the selection process? What puts you a level above the others? And that's relationships, friendships. And so he
isn't that always what matters?
It is what matters. And it was funny because Chief Kidd personally called the judge and said, you can't have both. And judge said, no, we need both. We had 10,000 structures flood in Brazoria County. He said, we need both because people are losing their homes. They can't afford to redo. And FEMA requires you to do an assessment. And if it's been damaged at over 50%, you're supposed to bring it up to compliance. Well, people couldn't afford that.
Of course not.
So they worked along, and it just so happened that Sharp, who had been a close ally of Brazoria County, was also a good friend of Judge Sebesta's. And he was going to A&M as the chancellor and would be in charge of this same program. So Chancellor Sharp, Chief Kidd, had these positive relationships with Brazoria County. When they announced and to top it off, it just so happened that Dennis Bonnen at the time was Speaker of the House.
Beautiful.
It was
it falls together.
Trifecta.
That's beautiful.
So
how many houses did y'all raise up? Or so
we've already raised a little over 100 or reconstructed, and then we have 100 more that are awaiting approval. So it was approved, and it continues to be a positive, so positive. But here's the setbacks. Anyone that's dealt with FEMA understands that FEMA is slow, and FEMA does it on FEMA timeline. And we were told this was warp speed for FEMA because Dennis Bonnen was Speaker of the House. He was pushing it, making it work. And it would cover 75% of the cost. Well, people were still 25% to elevate a structure was still $35,000. So Dennis got passed, and the money is still there today. It's been there since Harvey. Senate Bill 7, which said we will pay the homeowners 75% of their 25% out-of-pocket expense. So, Dave, we see them with paying $4,000 or $5,000 out of a $200,000 elevation. Because the reality at that time, housing wasn't quite as expensive as it is now, but it was $120 a square foot to elevate a concrete foundation, and that included porches, garages, and so it was extremely expensive. And if they already had a mortgage, you and I both know that, especially young couples, hell, I still do that today, live payday to payday.
I'm still a licensed insurance agent, and I've always said, Keith, and you'll probably agree with me, I think water damage is more destructive than fire. Fire could be, you have a kitchen fire or something like that. And my home is in an X zone, and everybody thought that was the blue plate special. Let me tell you something. I don't care if you're in an X zone or a V zone. Get flood insurance. It is a game changer.
It is a game changer. And I would hear all the time, well, my neighbor didn't have it, and they got assistance from FEMA. But the reality, they didn't get what you would have gotten, and just the assurance that if something happens, and I hear it all the time. Well, I live on the high bank of the creek. I'll never get flooded. I've learned a long time ago, never say never.
All of my ex-zone friends, they come in, well, we got flooded, but I didn't get flooded and so. So I go, listen, y'all, times they are a-changing. Weather conditions change. Like my home in the middle of Lake Jackson, it didn't have water on it back in the days of the Ark.
Right.
But I'm not going to go without flood insurance, even though I just got my bill the other day and I go, $1,250 in an X zone, I'm paying it and glad to be able to.
And it is a challenge. I know, especially on beach property, that flood insurance and windstorm is expensive. But the reality, take advantage of it. It's still government subsidized, and it's not as expensive as you would pay for private insurance.
Outstanding Man of the Year, Clute VIP, member of so many deserving nonprofits. And I know of one fundraiser that's near and really dear to your heart, and that is the Bunny Hop. Tell us how that Easter time tradition began.
When I first came
we don't
back,
have a lot of time. But
okay, I was on Salvation Army board in Cleburne, and I came back down here and wanted to be a part of it. We had a daycare. It was losing money because the reality, if you're in a Salvation Army daycare, you probably don't have any money to pay the weekly fee. So they told me they were going to shut it down, and I wanted that open because what we had created was a preschool. I wanted them to have the same opportunity as most children have from wealthier families, where they send them to private preschools. So they said, you got to raise $50,000. And so we did and got that done. And then the next year I was on the board for the youth home. And again, they said, we're going to close the youth home if you don't raise $70,000. And so we wanted it, and they were going to shut it down before the kids graduated. And you're well aware of the youth home. You participated in a number of activities. Well, we raised the $70,000, and they closed it the next day. So from that point on, our focus has always been the Salvation Army, but it's always child-centered. And the Bunny Hop is it's a fundraiser that you've helped with probably for 12 out of the 15 years, and as our auctioneer. But it's a good mix of auction, dancing, fun.
It's my favorite.
Lots of adult beverages. I'm telling you, it just makes you want to have a good time and still give money.
Isn't it a great feeling? What about the giving feeling of everybody there? They're in a good mood, and they know they're doing it for a good cause and having a good time to boot.
Oh, it's unbelievable. When we have a section where if you have money left, you just want to give to the Salvation Army, and we'll have people give 500 here, 1,000 here.
Right.
But, I go back, and I know we're just about out of time, but this is how, again, it goes back to we take care of our own. When I was in Cleburne, I look up and I'm at a Salvation Army board meeting, and I look out the window and I see my salutatorian. She's walking up, and I'm thinking she
barely beat you out of that position.
I can't spell salutatorian. But I see her walking up, and I'm thinking, what's she doing here? She comes from an affluent family. And so I go out to say hi, and she sees me, and she turns around and starts running away. So I go catch her, and I went, well, wait, you're all right. What's wrong? And she said, oh, Mr. Ripple, she started crying. She said, and back then, now this was years ago, she was in a mixed race relationship, and she was pregnant. Salutatorian didn't deter her ability for academic success, but her parents had said, you made the decision, you're out of the house, because she had chose a biracial relationship, and she needed diapers. And I said, you're going to come in and get diapers, and you're going to get whatever you need, and you're going to get, if you need housing, we'll take care of it. And I just remember going back in, because at that time, the philosophy of so many people in the community that the Salvation Army was just for those destitutes and drug addicts and those people that made really bad choices. But the reality, all of us are just one incident away from needing our community and family support. Not because we're anybody special, but Davis, we in that just because you're one of ours, and we're not going to let you fail. So throughout my entire career and the opportunities I've had at the county and through civic organizations like the Salvation Army, everyone's important, no matter your status. We're going to make a difference in your life.
Well, bless you, my friend.
All right.
For the Brazoria County Floodplain District with Director Joe Ripple, Marketing and Creative LLC with our producer Lee Cowan, and First National Bank Lake Jackson, I'm Dave Mayberry saying thanks for joining us, and we'll be back with a new edition soon. You can bank on it. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal or financial advice. Please consult with a professional for specific advice tailored to your situation. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and any guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of First National Bank of Lake Jackson. This episode discusses topics that are subject to change. Always review your current sources.